So even after we discussed so much and we learned so many points, even after Krishna said so many shlokas in Bhagavad Gita about the soul, but still I don't see the soul, right? Even though Krishna says soul is never born, soul is never dead, but still I don't see the soul. We don't see the soul, just like we don't see many things in life. We don't see the perfume in rose flower. We don't see oil in sesame seeds. We don't see fire in wood. We don't see ghee in milk. We don't see jaggery in sugarcane, and so many things. Only when those elements have gone through some process, then we will see. For example, oil in sesame seeds. If the sesame seeds go through a particular process, then they produce oil. Ghee in milk. Milk has to become yogurt, and yogurt has to become the cream, the cheese, and then cheese has to become ghee. But there is ghee in milk. Okay, we cannot deny that. And fire in wood, jaggery in sugar cane. We cannot deny the existence of all these things in these material elements. Similarly, we cannot deny the existence of the soul. Even though we can't see, we can't deny the existence of the soul. The same thing in the Sanskrit shloka. Pushpe gandham tile tailam kashte agnim payasi gritam ikshau gudam tata dehe pashaitatmanam vivekataha. So a learned person, just like how he cannot see, just like how he sees perfume in rose flower, I mean he notices, not sees, but he sees he notices perfume in rose flower, he notices oil in sesame seeds, or he can extract fire from wood. Similarly, a learned person, Viveka means a learned person can see the presence of the soul in every living being. There is a shloka in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Pandita Samadarshana. A learned person means a person who has knowledge of soul and God. A person who has spiritual knowledge. A person who has spiritual knowledge will see the presence of soul in everybody. And he sees everybody as equal. Human beings, animals, insects, dog eater, Chandala. Chandala is dog eater. So he sees everyone as equal. So for us, we discriminate, right? We discriminate between human beings and animals. Within human beings, we discriminate between good people and bad people. We discriminate between a Brahmana and Kshatriya, a Vaishya and Shudra, and a Chandala, and so on. But a person who has spiritual knowledge, he sees everyone as equal. Because he sees the presence of soul in everybody. Okay, similarly, this shloka is also saying the same thing. A Viveka, a person who is learned, sees soul in everybody. Do electrons exist? Yes, they exist. We cannot see with our naked eye, but with an appropriate apparatus, we can see them. Similarly, if we follow the right process, we can have realization of the presence of the soul. Okay? And that process is Bhakti Yoga. It can be Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, any of those yogas. Okay, now characteristics of the soul. So what are the different methods that we discussed about the proof of existence of the soul? We discussed intuition, common sense, some shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, and then near-death experience, past life memories. What else? That's all. Now, characteristics of the soul. So this is a Bhagavad Gita class. If you want to sit, feel free to sit. Yeah. Now let's see the characteristics of the soul. In Bhagavad Gita 2.29, Krishna says, some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing. while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Ascharyavat paschati kaschidenam, ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanya. So, see, right now we are all hearing about the soul. And we say, wow, the soul is eternal. Nobody created the soul. Soul is never born, never died. These are astonishing things, right? Because for the material body, there is birth, there is death, there is beginning, there is end. The body can be killed. These are the facts about the material body. But when we hear facts from a different perspective, from a different realm, that the soul can never be dead, can never be killed, soul is always eternal, soul is never created. So we get a feeling of ascharya, you know. So so this is a slide that says, whatever you think the opposite. Right? Whatever you think the opposite. Now, what's the meaning of this? Whatever you think the opposite. The meaning of this is, now whenever we think of anything in the material world, just like for example, the birth date and death date. There has to be a date. For every event, there has to be a date. Only then we can understand, or only then we can believe that such and such event happened. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to understand. But whatever you think the opposite. That means, just like how we are thinking, there is a date for everything. Think that there is no date for the soul. And whatever you think, there is birth and death for the body. Think the opposite. There's no birth and death for the soul. So why it has been mentioned like this? The reason is, or why the Shastras are recommending. Not only Paul Arden is saying this, okay? The Shastras are recommending for us to think in different perspective. Why? Because whenever we think of something or whenever we try to understand something, we always apply our material consciousness, and we always apply our material analytical understanding to try to understand things. But these are the things from a different realm. We cannot understand these things with our material senses or with our material body. With our material eye, we cannot see many things. With our material ear, we cannot hear many things. For example, infrasonic and ultrasonic sounds we cannot hear. Yeah? But if you use a proper apparatus, we can hear. So that's why before you can actually have a realization of those things, you think opposite. Whatever you try to think using your material conception, you think the opposite. Okay? Then at least theoretically you will understand. Okay? Realization of those things comes later, but at least theoretically you will understand how those things are different from material things. Okay? Now here are some differences between body and soul. Body is dead matter. That means the body itself doesn't have any feelings. Body itself doesn't have any experience. Body is temporary. Body is devoid of any bliss. Body does not have any consciousness. Asat, Achit, Nirananda. Whereas the characteristics of the soul are Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. These are the three characteristics of the soul. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternal, as opposed to Asat for the body. Chit means conscious. The body is fully conscious of the self and also God. The soul is fully conscious of the self and also about the God. Fully aware. Fully conscious means fully aware of one's own identity and also about God. Whereas the body is not conscious. Okay? So Chit is conscious or awareness. In simple words, awareness. If you have challenge to understand that word consciousness or conscious, just think of it as awareness. Spirit soul is aware of his or her own identity and also about God. Whereas the body is not aware of the actual identity. Body is aware of the temporary identity, man, woman, businessman, IT professional, father, son, and so on. The body is only aware of the temporary identities, but the body is not aware of the real identity. Whereas the soul is aware of the real identity, that is Chit, consciousness. And then Ananda, bliss. Soul is blissful. Soul is always blissful. Whereas material body is always miserable. Body is always going through miseries. Soul is indestructible. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nachainam kledayantyapo, nashoshayati marutaha. So this is another shloka from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Nainam chindanti shastrani, the soul can never be cut by weapons. Nainam dahati pavakaha. Pavaka means fire. The soul can never be burnt with fire. Nachainam kledayantyapo. Soul can never be moistened with water. Apo is water. Soul can never be moistened with water. Nashoshayati marutaha. Or soul can never be withered by wind. Okay, withered means like being blown away. Yeah, being blown away. Marutaha. Maruta is wind. So these are some of the characteristics of the soul. Now anything that you see in the material world is opposite of this. Nainam chindanti shastrani. What is opposite of this? Everything in the material world can be destroyed with a sword. Nainam dahati pavakaha. What is the opposite? Everything in the material world can be burnt with fire. Okay? Nachainam kledayantyapo. What's the opposite of this? Everything in the material world can be moistened with water. Nashoshayati marutaha. What's the opposite? Everything in the material world can be withered by the wind. Even big buildings can be withered by the wind. If the tornado is so heavy, a building can be blown away. Okay? We have seen cars, so far we have seen cars being withered by the wind. In the Midwest, we have heard many incidents where the roof of the house or cars, were withered by the wind. If the wind is so strong, then it can even blow away the house also. Okay? That's why the previous, Paul Arden book, where it says, whatever you think opposite. That's the meaning of this. If you still did not understand what Paul Arden was saying, okay? Whatever you think opposite. Okay? Soul is individual. Now there are some spiritual organizations or some philosophies where they say that after liberation or mukti, the Jivatma goes and merges with Paramatma. That means the Jivatma loses its identity and merges with Paramatma. Now when the Jivatma merges with Paramatma, that means the Jivatma has lost its identity, right? That's not true. Soul is always individual. So soul never merges with Paramatma. Soul will remain separate and Paramatma will remain separate. Soul and super soul, Jivatma, Paramatma, both are separate. So this is another shloka. Natve vaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam ataparam. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So this was the instruction given by Krishna to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra when Arjuna was hesitant to fight with his relatives. He was thinking that Arjuna was going to be the cause of the permanent death of all the Kauravas. That's why Krishna gave this instruction saying that never was there a time when I did not exist, Krishna, when I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So whatever Arjuna was thinking, that was not correct. So he has to think opposite. Okay? Arjuna was thinking that he was going to be the cause of the permanent death of those Kauravas. But he was only going to kill the temporary bodies, not their souls, because the soul can never be killed. Yes.
So the soul cannot be killed, but it does experience the pain of death.
Yes.
So even if Arjun, by killing them, will not destroy them forever,
Yeah.
he will be inflicting the pain of death on them,
Yes.
which is also something that he probably doesn't want to do.
Yes. So, in fact, the same question was asked by Arjuna. So, and I'll answer what Krishna answered to Arjuna. So, this is what exactly Arjuna asked. When Krishna started giving preliminary knowledge of the soul, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatrana muhyati. Soul transmigrates from one body to another body at the time of death. And this shloka also, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kingsmen. We are all eternal. Don't worry, Arjuna. Then Arjuna asked the exact question. He said, yes, Krishna, I get it. I am a soul. I get it. But when I am interacting with my relatives, I am interacting with their material bodies. And anything that happens to their material bodies, I am affected. And anything that happens to my body also, I am affected. It pains me. So then Krishna said in the next shloka, very next shloka, 2.14, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agamapayino nitya tamsti tikshasva bharata. Krishna gave the very first instruction called tolerance, art of tolerance. Krishna said, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada. The happiness and distress in this material world are like summer and winter. They come and go. Agama apayino. They come and go. And one must learn to tolerate. Just like how we tolerate summer and winter. In summer, if you go to Dallas, 105 degrees, you can't do anything other than tolerating. And if you go to Alaska or some cold place, you can't do anything other than just tolerating. Temporarily, you can put some heaters and some air conditioning, but still, when you have to go out and when there is no electricity, you have to feel the pain. And what else can you do? You can't do anything other than tolerating. And that's what Krishna said. So one must learn to tolerate. Happiness and distress are like winter and summer, and one must learn to tolerate. Okay, yes, it does affect when the soul experiences the pain of death. Not only death, right? Even while the body is leaving, when the soul is still in this body, in this life, the soul goes through so many painful experiences. During old age or during diseases, the soul experiences several painful experiences. And Krishna...
I didn't understand. Okay, so as an individual, you are expected to tolerate
Yes.
both distress and happiness.
Yeah.
But how does that justify inflicting distress on somebody else? Because he will be inflicting distress on his relatives.
Good question. Yeah, good question. So, for dharma to establish dharma paripalana, violence is needed. Shastra recommends non-violence. In general, Shastra recommends non-violence. Shastra never recommends to kill others or to kill other animals. The same Shastra that recommends non-violence also recommends violence when it is needed. So now Kauravas, what were they doing? They were trying to establish adharma paripalana, irreligion. Now to stop that irreligion, to stop that adharma paripalana, and to establish dharma paripalana, it is necessary to commit violence and kill those people.
Absolutely. Because if Buddha was an incarnation of Krishna,
Yes.
Buddha's teachings are quite different in that aspect. Right?
Yeah, Buddha's teachings were non-violence.
Right.
Yeah. So every avatar or every incarnation of Krishna has a purpose. For example, the Vamana avatar or Varaha avatar, the boar form of Krishna, the purpose was because Hiranyaksha, he uh, he has submerged the earth planet into ocean. Now, somebody who is capable of doing that, they have to uplift that earth planet and make it into a normal thing. So then Krishna appeared as Varaha, a boar form, and uplifted that earth which was submerged by Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha was a demon. Okay, so like that, every avatar or every incarnation of God has a purpose. Buddha Avatara, there is a purpose, specific purpose for that. Buddha Avatara, the purpose was not to teach about spiritual knowledge, not to teach that you are the soul and not the body. Buddha Avatara's purpose was not to teach love of God. Buddha Avatara's role was not to establish Dharma Paripalana. There is only one simple agenda for Buddha Avatar, that is non-violence. Yeah, that was specific, very specific. Do not kill animals. Yeah. Yes, you had a question?
No question, just a statement that maybe at that time it was Arjuna's karma to fight the war because it was as a Kshatriya, it was his karma.
Not
He
karma,
had to
duty.
fight the war.
Duty.
Dharma.
It was duty, dharma. Yeah.
He had to bind Arj war is violence. But that was the setup.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're right.
That's his duty
Yes.
to do and not flee away from what he's supposed to.
Absolutely.
Even though it leads to death and destruction.
Yes.
But I have the same doubt as well.
Mhm.
Even though Buddha had a purpose,
Yeah.
does that mean like are we supposed to look at them as a exclusive, mutually exclusive way? Like if Buddha taught about non-violence,
Yeah.
aren't we supposed to follow that also in every aspect of life? How do we decide violence is justified in one case but it's not in another case?
Yeah. So Buddha Avatara came, or the Lord incarnated as Buddha in a specific time where violence was predominant. People were killing animals left and right. And for what? Just for eating. Nothing else. Just for eating, they're killing animals left and right predominantly. It was going on big time. Now, in that time, if somebody comes and tells you, sit, you're not this body, you are the spirit soul. Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa. Who will listen? They will not listen. Because if somebody is killing animals very cruelly, left and right, predominantly in a big time, they are in the mode of passion. They are in the mode of passion and ignorance. Okay, mostly ignorance, not even passion. They are in the mode of ignorance. They are not even ready to accept a good piece of advice. Okay, so first they have to come to a platform where they can behave like normal people. So that was the agenda for Buddha. Yeah, because if he starts teaching spirituality, nobody is going to listen. Yeah. So like that, different times Krishna appears in different avatars to teach different things. The same Krishna, right? Where he in Buddha Avatara he said no violence, but the same Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra he encouraged Arjuna to commit violence. So violence, when it is needed, Shastra recommends. Shastra gives license to violence.
Does the Gita help guide in terms of just like figuring out when violence is justified? Or is that in the Shastras but not in the Gita?
Sorry, say it again.
In the Gita, does Krishna explain when violence is justified, when it is not? Or for that, do we have to rely on?
No, in Gita there are principles. Okay, In several shlokas, Krishna gives the principles of violence and non-violence. And if you refer to Srimad Bhagavatam, you will have some case studies of people who have committed violence when it is not needed, or people who have practiced non-violence as per Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. You'll find different case studies in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavad Gita is a law book. It contains principles, instructions. And Srimad Bhagavatam is like a law journal. It contains case studies of people who followed these do's and don'ts. Okay, and what happened if they followed the do's, and what happened if they violated the do's and only did the don'ts. Yeah. Okay. Is it 8 o'clock? Hmm? So let's see how many more slides are there. There are about 15-20 slides. I think we'll continue next week then. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll continue next week. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. See you. Now we all can go and attend Aarti.